sure that you've all probably heard about the situation with Antifa and what's going to happen on November 4th. Not exactly that you've heard what's going to happen, but that you've heard that something is going to happen. And I'm sure you're all probably wondering what that is. So let me break a few things down for you. Okay? The number one thing that you have to realize is that Antifa is not an organic organization. As we all know, there are funders to these radical groups. Just to give one example, the most famous one, George Soros. He just recently dumped $18 billion into his Open Society organization. And as we know, the Open Society organization funds radical left-wing movements and groups such as Black Lives Matter to the tune of millions of dollars, as well as people like Antifa. Now, the thing you have to realize is these people, these Antifa people, they're pawns. They're just pawns on the chessboard, and you're not looking at the chess players when you're looking at Antifa, and you're thinking about what they're gonna do. You're not really seeing the bigger picture. Okay, and that's what you gotta do, is you gotta look at the chess players, and what is their agenda. You see, people like George Soros are extremely intelligent. That's why they're so successful. That's why they're able to make billions of dollars. And that's why they have so much influence on society. And anybody that's successful is always able to plot multiple steps ahead of the game. They're able to see multiple dimensions. When you're just looking at one, you're just looking at Antifa. You're just looking at these kids coming out there in black masks and throwing trash cans and maybe hitting people. But these people, like George Soros, thinking much bigger than that. Okay, so don't be fooled into just looking and focusing on the pawns, but look at the bigger picture. Now, let's say that Antifa comes out on November 4th, and let's say they do some things. What could they do? Right. At the very least, they could destroy property. The next step up would be to, create minor assault. And then the next step up is to have major assault. And the next step up possibly is to kill somebody. And the next step up is possibly to try to attempt to, kill government, administration people and so forth, like Steve Scalise. Now, what does that achieve for them if they do any of that? What is it going to achieve? Are they going to remove Trump from power? Are they going to have any legislative success from these moves? Absolutely not. So, if we know they're not going to have any success, why would somebody like George Soros fund them to do something where they're not going to have any success? Now here, let's take a step back and look at the other side. And the other side is, what's the reaction from the right? How about we learn a little something from this event, Charlottesville, and what happened there? You see, in Charlottesville, Antifa came out and they did what they were gonna do, right? They did what they always do. They caused havoc and violence. But who got in trouble? Who got blamed? Who did Charlottesville hurt? Charlottesville hurt basically the entire conservative movement and Donald Trump, right? Now you can say that Charlottesville hurt the alt-right, right? But either way, we know who they hurt. But here's the thing about the alt-right that I want you to think about. See, the alt-right is in reality a fairly radical movement. They're a rebranding of essentially a neo-Nazi, neo-KKK movement. But they call themselves the alt-right because it's more palatable and it fits into a more mainstream perspective. Like they're the right wing. And you have these people like David Duke come out in Charlottesville and say that we're doing Donald Trump's agenda, we're here to promote Donald Trump's agenda. But they show up with Nazi flags and Klan iconography with torches, and so forth, right? So, what kind of image does that create? And we're still talking about Charlottesville and what happened there, right? And what kind of backlash it created, because this is an important lesson to learn. What does something like Charlottesville create? Okay, I want you to realize, if you're on the alt-right, something very important. And what that is that even if you're trying to appeal to the right wing of America, or let's say more specifically, if you're on the alt-right, or this is what you call yourself, and you're trying to appeal, to whites in America against, major demographic replacement and anti-white racism and things like that. Let me tell you a little secret. 99% of white America rejects neo-Nazis, rejects Nazism in general, and rejects the Klan, and rejects these radicalized movements. Okay? Just look at Richard Spencer's talks and rallies. His Twitter followers has all very low numbers, right? But why does every time he opens his mouth, the media jumps on it to cover him, right? Because the reality is that whether these people are double agents, or they're just stupid, or they're radicals, they don't think, they don't understand, whatever they are, they're discrediting whites, they're discrediting any kind of right-wingers, they're discrediting Donald Trump, they're discrediting everybody with their imagery and with showing up. Now think about this on November 4th. Think about this short game versus a long game. Let's say you show up, or the alt-right shows up, and they fight Antifa. Let's say they hurt an Antifa. Let's say we have another car attack murder situation like we did in Charlottesville, right? With people claiming to side for Donald Trump, who carry Nazi flags and run people over with cars. Who do you think that's going to hurt? Right? If somebody shows up on November 4th who's alt-right, who's basically a neo-Nazi, and attempts acts of violence in an attempt to have some kind of retaliation or fighting back against Antifa, even fighting back if they create anything like this, then who do you think Antifa, what do you think they have achieved at that point versus if they just did what they did, right? Because if Antifa goes out on November 4th and let's say that they hurt people, they do any of those bad things that I mentioned, they're the ones that are going to look crazy. They're the ones that are going to look discredited, right? But if the right reacts, or even, let's say, Trump supporters go out and react to Antifa violently, or do something like this, or even worse, let's say the alt-right. See, the alt-right, they just have to show up and bring their Klan iconography, their neo-Nazi iconography. And that's like almost as bad as committing violence. And if they commit violence, that's like double on top of that. Right? So the main point I'm trying to make is if the right reacts in violence, or if the alt-right reacts in violence, or even shows up with their iconography, or especially shows up with their iconography and reacts in violence, even in one event, then Antifa has achieved what they wanted to achieve. This will discredit Donald Trump. This will label the right-wing radicals. This will label the right-wing violent. This will label the right-wing terrorists. This will label the right-wing Nazis, Neo-Klan, KKK. It'll be another Charlottesville, right? Now, if you think about people who are funding this, like George Soros, who are very intelligent, who can think 2 steps ahead, if I can figure this out, if I can learn these lessons from Charlottesville, you don't think that they realize what's going to happen? You don't think that they have this plotted out? Why would they fund Antifa to do something on November 4th where they're going to discredit the whole left and achieve nothing? Right? That's what I want you to think about. What is going to happen in these situations? Imagine what happens if the right discredits itself, or if the alt-right, the quote alt-right, the neo-Nazis, the neo-Klan, discredit Trump, discredit the general right-wing movement in America. What's going to happen think about this, the long game, the real game versus the short game versus the little short-term rewards. On one hand, you punch Antifa, you punch some guy, you hurt some guy, you show up, you do something radical, and you get this short-term satisfaction, but you've achieved nothing. But if they do that, you actually hurt things such as congressional elections in 2018. You'll hurt the chances of the right-wing candidates. You'll hurt the chances of things like the wall being built. You'll hurt the chances of Donald Trump's strategy, like David Duke showing up and saying, "We're here for Donald Trump," and Klan iconography, people waving Nazi flags, hurts Trump's strategy. People committing violence in the name of the right hurts the right. And these people are especially dangerous to watch out for is the alt-right neo-Nazis. Okay? And what they do. Because they're very, very effective. They're the most effective group at discrediting the right, at discrediting Donald Trump. And you have to ask yourself about some of their leaders. Okay? So this is just what I want you to think about. What's the real plot of Antifa on November 4th? What are they going to accomplish? Maybe what they're going to accomplish is not going to happen through them, but it will happen through the alt-right. Or maybe just a regular right wing. Maybe just a Trump supporter. That's what they will accomplish. They will accomplish their objective by you fighting back. So what do? What's the strategy here? Because we have to have a strategy like the left has a strategy. We have to have a strategy like George Soros has a strategy. It's time for us to get smart. It's time for us to get vigilant. And what do? We don't show up to fight. We don't show up to cause violence. We don't show up to confront these people, to even give a potential for violence. We work to discredit the alt-right, to disavow them. So if they show up with Nazi iconography, if they show up and cause violence or havoc, they're discredited by our side. Okay? And if you think you're on the alt-right, just please do not show up. Do not do anything. Stay at home. What you want to do is you want to videotape these people. Show up with cameras. Let's catch the video. How do you think in the civil rights movement for African Americans in America, how did they gain their civil rights? They gained their civil rights by things like getting sprayed with fire hoses when they just stood there. And this was caught on camera. And the people spraying them looked crazy. And then everybody saw that and said, look, these people are crazy, we need to change this. But what would have happened if one of those people would have shot the fireman? What would have happened in that event? I want you to think about these things. I want you to think about the strategy of the people funding Antifa. I want you to think about strategy 2 steps ahead. And I want you to create a strategy of your own. This is how we're going to have success.